You know what's strange? Every generation gets a think piece. Boomers get blamed for the economy. Millennials get analyzed for killing every industry from napkins to marriage. Gen Z gets dissected like scientists just discovered a new species. But there's one generation that built half the internet, ran half the companies, and somehow still gets skipped in the conversation. Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980. And here's what nobody tells you. Their psychology might be the most misunderstood of any generation alive. They were the original latchkey kids. Not a few of them. Millions. Picture it. You're 9 years old. It's 1979. Both your parents work. You let yourself into an empty house with a key on a shoelace around your neck. You make your own snack, do your own homework, and wait for someone to come home. No cell phone to check in. No camera on the porch. No group chat to say you made it inside safe. A study in the American Journal of Orthopsychiatry found that by the mid-1980s, millions of school-age kids were regularly home alone after school with zero supervision. That's not a footnote. That's an entire generation raised by silence and a house key.
That silence taught them something most people never learn until adulthood. Not because their parents didn't love them, because the world had changed faster than anyone could adjust to it. And when their parents did walk through the door, the rules weren't up for discussion. There was no sitting down to talk about feelings. There was consequence, immediate and unfiltered. Step out of line, you knew about it in real time. Psychologists call this a high contingency environment. Action, then outcome. No buffer. That's why Gen X thinks 3 steps ahead in a way that quietly unnerves younger generations. Their brains were trained on real-time cause and effect before they were old enough to vote. Then they watched the adults fumble everything they were told mattered. Marriages that were supposed to last, ending everywhere. Parents who gave decades to companies, handed a pink slip the moment the numbers dipped. Every adult said the same thing. Work hard, follow the rules, it'll work out. Then the rules kept changing mid-sentence. So yes, a psychologist might label it defensive pessimism. Gen X just calls it being realistic. It's not cynicism, it's armor. They hope for the good outcome, but some part of them is always braced for the floor to disappear, because it kept disappearing. That's also why you barely see them online. They grew up when privacy wasn't a setting. It was just how life worked. You messed up, a handful of people knew, and
Humor became the shield. Crack the joke first. Keep the world at arm's length. Laugh before it has the chance to land. Makes sense when you remember they grew up under the Cold War, ducking under desks and drills that wouldn't have saved anyone, while adults insisted everything was fine. When the grown-ups hold 2 contradicting truths at once, you learn to keep your distance, just in case. But here's where it flips. Despite all of that, Gen X built one of the strongest work ethics of any generation, and they never talk about it. No posts, no announcements, just the work. Paper routes before sunrise, grocery bagging, fast food registers where you counted change by hand because the machine broke and nobody was coming to fix it. These weren't resume lines. They were early, unfiltered introductions to responsibility. They watched their parents' loyalty get shredded by corporate restructuring, so they stopped believing in company loyalty. But they became fiercely loyal to their own competence, because that's the one thing nobody could lay off. Here's the paradox at their core. They are simultaneously the most self-reliant generation and the most quietly dependable. They will never ask you for help. They've been solving things alone since they were 8. But if you need help, they show up. No announcement, no drama. That comes from forming real bonds out of necessity, back when nobody else was around to catch them. Research in the Journal of Adult Development shows Gen X reports lower rates of seeking social support during stress, not because they lack people to ask, but because asking can feel, to them, like losing. Even the way they learn is different. Before the internet, information cost something. Hours in a library, flipping through a card catalog for one book that might hold the answer. That effort mattered. Cognitive psychologists call it deeper encoding, The harder you work for information, the more permanently it sticks. They fixed things with their hands because that's what you did. Flipped the bike over, got grease on your fingers, figured it out. No technician on speed dial, just patience and a screwdriver. And now they're raising kids in a world built entirely opposite to the one that shaped them. Constant supervision, constant visibility. They gave their children the attention they never had. And sometimes they quietly wonder if it made them too soft, too dependent, too exposed. Because in the Gen X mind, visibility is vulnerability. Maybe that's the real truth about this generation. They might be the last one that actually knows what it means to sit with boredom, to be alone with an unanswered question, to solve a problem without typing it into a search bar. They're not better than any other generation, just shaped by a moment that no one else lived through quite the same way. The hinge between an old world ending and a new one that hadn't arrived yet. They're the bridge, and bridges don't get applause. They just hold the weight and let everyone else walk across. Maybe that's the most